welcome to this super late edition of The Wake Up. My name is Spence Welsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have, very, very sorry about this. We do have an incredibly late show for you today, but still, we're talking about Donald Trump coming in to this election not doing so great. We'll take a look at the factors that he needs to overcome to win. Some agency shakeups, taking a look at the 2020 campaign, obviously, and possible action on gun legislation, even from Mitch McConnell. Oh my God, what? Yeah, no, we're like 2 hours late on the wake up this morning. I do apologize. Really debated doing it in the first place, but it is totally worth it because I love doing this show always for you. All right, let's get into it. So, a lot of people are saying, especially Charlie Cook of Cook Political Report, he wrote this in the 2020 Almanac of American Politics, the ultimate guide to American politics. And he says that Trump will be an historic underdog coming into the 2020 campaign. Well, there is perfect reason after what happened last year, and I think you'd be really stupid not to take that with a healthy brand of skepticism in this front, because polling was so wrong, especially statewide polling was so wrong in the past that it's hard to comprehend how bad and how wrong that it was. But anyway, let's hear its case. Cook, in the book's introduction, mildly debunks the growing fear among some Democrats and fellow pundits that Trump's favored to win re-election. Never mind the Paul Krugman columns of the world. The bedwetting of the Democratic Party's leftward lurch and the assumption that Trump's incumbency advantage is simply too great to overcome, as well as the possibility of winning the Electoral College again, even stronger than last time, or having like 5 million people vote for the Democrat, whoever that ends up being, and losing because of the fact that the Electoral College didn't go the way we wanted it to. It'll be a pretty dangerous thing. So Cook points out that the two major party nominees in 2016, Trump and Hillary, had unparalleled unfavorability ratings. It's likely this scenario will repeat itself in 2020, regardless of who the Democratic nominee is next year, especially for someone like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whatever, because they are they're really the most unpopular. I think you get someone like Bernie Sanders in there. I think he can break through that. He can really come in that outsider politician way, and I think if he is, it's going to be very hard because the media is going to be on him like whatever something is on. But like you saw this week, he went on the Joe Rogan podcast, which is the biggest podcast in the country, and he was like, he really convinced. If you look at the YouTube comments for that episode, he convinced a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that I know who would not agree with what Bernie Sanders has to say, and watched what Joe Rogan's discussion with him, and really did come away convinced. And the thing about Joe Rogan is, he wants to, he really, really wants to, he really just wants to provide a forum for his guests to like talk. I mean, he doesn't really challenge them much. He's got people on that are really unsavory sometimes, and just doesn't challenge them at all whatsoever. And I think that's a very good thing and a very, very bad thing, because it's good to have a chance of best to talk. But again, you don't want to be down their throats like it's some sort of like CNN interview. Jake Tapper's like asking you all these stupid, like incredibly biased questions, like it's the debates all over again. But again, if your guest says something, you don't want to have a response here and there, and that's not Joe Rogan's absolute strength. So, but it's okay. He did it. I think this time, at least, it really worked out into Bernie Sanders' favor, because he did a lot better in convincing some of his Joe Rogan's audience about some of the ideas. If you look at the YouTube comments there, so if he gets that out, if he presents his positive vision for America, which is something that I think a lot of Democrats, except for really like Warren, Bernie, I mean, maybe a few others, I think they're really going to struggle to do that. I think Joe Biden will be just Hillary Clinton all over again, because not only is he sundowning, not only does he have very little policies, like he also has an awful record. Like, that triple trifecta is so, like, it's worse than what Hillary ever brought to the table. So that's why I think it's what makes him so dangerous. Here's what he says. Americans were presented a choice between a Republican nominee with the highest unfavorability ratings in exit poll history at 60% against a Democratic nominee with the highest unfavorable ratings, 54% of any nominee for a party. And who might have guessed that though among 18% of the voters who told exit pollsters that they had unfavorable views of Clinton and Trump, that they would end up voting for Trump by a 17-point margin, 47 to 30%. Trump's presidential job approval ratings have trailed not only those of 6 incumbent presidents who were successful, but in many ways the 2 that didn't win re-election. Cook says Trump's approval ratings has not only been consistently low since taking office, but his disapproval rating has also been exceedingly high and is backed by a signature intensity. In the 2 months since 2 years, since of weekly Gallup tracking in 2017 and 2018, and monthly since the start of 2019, Trump has not only never had a presidential job approval rating of 50% or higher, as every other president had as of the end of May of 2019, has never exceeded 46%. He has averaged 40% since taking office, and his disapprovals consistently have run higher than his approvals, a situation pollsters refer to as upside down or underwater. When the news is good, Trump's numbers move up a little bit, but when the news is bad, they don't go down much either, Cook writes, signifying the high degree of ultra-partisanship that currently exists. So yeah, I mean, they're not really going to go much up because there's going to be people, there are people in the country who say, I hate Trump, and there's people, like, there's about, I don't know, like, 10% of the country who says, I like Trump. No, that was bad. And that's pretty much the massive swing of his approval ratings that takes place. I know, not very massive at all. That's the point. But yeah, and not all the time do those 10% move in unison. Some people say I'm staying with Trump. Some people say I'm breaking with Trump. That could be 3 to 7, 4 to 6, 5 to 5, whatever the case may be. It's unlikely the eventual Democratic nominee will make the same mistakes fumbled by the Clinton campaign in the closing weeks of the 2016 campaign. Clinton was the first major party nominee since 1972 to not set foot in the state of Wisconsin, then unexpectedly lost that state by 0.7 of a point. I don't think anyone's going to make that mistake again this time. Cook's examination of national polling shows that 35% of the vote is squarely in the Trump camp versus 45% solidly in the opposite corner. Trump could find a cure for both cancer and the common cold, ensure peace and tranquility for eternity, and eliminate all unemployment. And this 45% would remain militarily opposed, which is a pretty good way of putting it there from Charles Cook. So this leaves 20% of the vote up for grabs, which means that in order to win re-election, Trump would need to win between 2/3 and 3/4 of the 20% to stay within 3 points of a Democrat, which is a pretty tall order. While he's perfected the art of talking to his base for support, he seems unwilling or unable to reach or even talk to those beyond the base, those situated within his core support and the opposition camp. When unemployment hit a 49-year low in April of 2019, Trump's approval rating barely moved. So still, Trump is the incumbent, the economy is in pretty good shape, and there's a major Democratic fight, or at least on the surface the economy is in pretty good shape. There's a major Democratic fight underway that may or may not hurt that party's efforts to oust the president for the White House. I think it's going to make a pretty strong nominee. That's just me because I'm in favor of primaries. But Cook makes a compelling case that history, which he notes reasserted itself with Democratic gain in the House in the 2018 midterms, shouldn't be overlooked as we gear up for the big fight. All right, that's going to be interesting to watch. And I mean, I think it's going to be very important to select the right nominee because this is not just going to be a layup. It's not going to be any person beating Trump. To think that would be foolish, and it's the same kind of thinking that lost us the election the last time. We need to pick the right person and make sure whoever it is the strongest possible nominee that we can make them for the future. So President Trump said in a tweet Thursday that he's going to name Joseph Maguire, the director of National Counterterrorism Center, as the acting director of National Intelligence following his aborted effort to install a political loyalist. This comes as John Ratcliffe withdrew his nomination for the post, facing bipartisan opposition. McGuire is a retired Navy admiral, not steeped in the inner workings of the intelligence community, but his appointment was seen as a steadying in the middle of a tumultuous shakeup in the top ranks of the country's spy agencies. Imagine what they're thinking right now. It's like, oh wow, this president's really effing with us. But I mean, honestly, yeah, it's just so much chaos, so much like overturn. But I mean, you're never going to catch me really crying for any of the intelligence agencies at all. So, yeah, some intelligence agencies were relieved, saying, quote, "He's not a career intel officer, but he does understand the role that men and women of the intelligence community play and will represent them well." One senior intelligence official who spoke at the Commission of Anonymity, to be candid, told the Washington Post. Let's see. So, Dan Coates' deputy is on the way out. Sue Gordon will be leaving. Democratic and Republican lawmakers had said they wanted Gordon, a career intelligence official, to fill in for Coates, but Trump was reluctant to keep someone with whom he had never formed a close bond. The president and his aides also regarded her as a career official and consequently suspicious, according to officials familiar with the president's views. Deep state, folks. Outside the Beltway, multiple 2020 Dems are calling Trump a white supremacist. At least 5 Democrat presidential candidates have dubbed Trump a white supremacist, criticizing the president's rhetoric after the mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton. But both former Vice President and Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris refuse to go that far, say Washington Post, John Wagner, and Kobe Itkowitz. The candidates gave their assessment that only after being asked if they believe the president is a white supremacist. The senators are Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are senators, but Beto O'Rourke, obviously, is a representative. Mayor Pete and financier Tom Steyer have all called, I forgot he's running, have all called the president a white supremacist in the wake of the shooting. Biden stopped just short of joining in, saying, quote, "I believe everything the president says and does encourages white supremacists, and I'm not sure that there's much of a distinction. As a matter of fact, it may be even worse. In fact, if you're trying to, in fact, curry favor with white supremacists or any group, in fact, is anathema to everything we believe." And personally, I mean, he does do Joe Biden's absolutely right. He does everything he can to encourage white supremacists. He said numerous racist remarks in the past, but with a man who has the brain of a DQ Fleury, like, it's kind of hard to imagine that he has any consistent beliefs. Like, was he thinking in these white supremacist terms? I mean, I think it's safe to say that he was. Getting sued for housing discrimination by the Justice Department. I think Nixon's Justice Department back in the 1970s is one of his really first business moves. Like, I mean, I think it's definitely safe to say that he is a white supremacist of some sort of way, although maybe not as fully formed and fully developed as someone like a Richard Spencer or someone who actually knows and identifies as a white supremacist. But he's unquestionably a chief supporter of them. Harris said Trump should be asked the question himself. There's no question that his words and language while running for the office, and since he's been in office of the President of the United States, has been about condoning conduct of white supremacists. So I think it's a fair conversation that's happening. So again, still refusing to take that mark, which is interesting. Warren expanded on her belief as well. He has given aid and comfort to white supremacists, Warren said. He's done the wink and a nod. He talked about white supremacists as fine people. He's done everything he can to stir up racial conflict and hatred in this country. O'Rourke said a similar theme, saying he has made that very clear. He's dehumanized people who do not look and pray like the majority of people here. He said, I wish we had more immigrants from Nordic countries because those from Haiti bring AIDS. Those from Africa are shithole nations. Trump obviously has repeatedly denied that he's a racist. Racism, though, in the White House, historically speaking, is nothing new. But the reality that in 2019, multiple contenders are calling the sitting president a white supremacist is notable. Because if Mitch McConnell was doing that, I don't think they would be doing that. Like, if, for example, if, like, Mitch McConnell just, like, they're not, no one's going to be out there calling John Kasich a white supremacist. It's going to be that simple. Yeah, because Trump he's actually done some things to back it up. So McConnell says that the Senate must take action